Okay, I'm going to count to 10 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. This time, I'm really gonna grab that doggone. The cop and Lefty Lewis were standing at the door. The cop said, "I want to take a look in the trunk." Him and Mr. Lewis went around to the back, and the trunk opened, and I heard someone rumbling around in it. I heard a loud bang and nearly jumped out of my seat. Whew! It was only Mr. Lewis closing the trunk. They walked back to the driver's door. The policeman looked in the back seat and said, "What's in the suitcase?" Mr. Lewis said, "Those are Bud's things. He was visiting here in Flint, and I'm taking him home to Grand Rapids." The policeman looked at me and said, "Oh, your grandson, huh? Huh, you two look just alike." Lefty Lewis said, "Why, thank you, officer. I always thought the boy was unusually handsome." The cop didn't have a good sense of humor. He said, "All right, you're free to go. We can't be too careful. I don't know if you heard, but we're having a lot of trouble in the factories here. We've been stopping all cars we don't recognize. There have been reports that some more of those stinking labor organizers might be sneaking up here from Detroit." Mr. Lewis said, "You don't say." The cop said, "Drive carefully," and he touched the brim of his cop hat the way a cowboy in the moving picture does. Lefty Lewis got in the car, started it, and we pulled back out on the highway. He made a scary face at me and said, "Bud, this has really been a couple of lucky days for you. First, I saved you from being eaten by some vampires in Owasso. Then you seem to have survived my daughter's pancakes. And finally, that police officer saves you from the feared and loathsome labor organizers of Detroit. You are truly blessed." Lefty Lewis was back to acting normal, but I kept wondering what was in the box he didn't want the cop to see. I said, "What's a labor organizer, sir?" Mr. Lewis said, "In Flint, there are people who are trying to get unions in the automobile factories." Before I had a chance to get my next question in, Lefty Lewis said, "I'ma save your breath for you, Bud. I'll bet the next thing out of your mouth was going to be, what's a union, right?" "Yes, sir." "A union is like a family. It's when a group of workers get together and try to make things better for themselves and their children." "That's all, sir?" "That's all." "Then why are the cops after them?" "That's a very good question. Look in that box you put under your seat." I pulled the box out and put it in my lap and looked over at Lefty Lewis. He looked back at me and checked the rearview mirror. "Go ahead." I stopped for a second. Maybe there was a loaded and cocked pistol hiding in the box. Maybe Lefty Lewis would have shot it out with the cop if he tried to take us to jail. I started raising the top off the box, and just as I was about to get it open, Lefty Lewis moved a lot faster than you'd think somebody's granddad could and slapped his hand on top of it, closing it back tight. Uh-oh. Maybe this was loot from a bank that him and Al Capone had knocked over. Maybe Lefty Lewis would have to rub me out if I saw what was inside. Maybe if I looked, I'd know too much. He said, "Before you look, Bud, you got to understand that what's in there is very dangerous." I said, "Well, sir, I really don't think I need to see it, sir. I think I'll just look out the window until we get to Grand Rapids, or maybe—" I gave a big fake yawn. "Maybe I'll take a nap." He laughed and said, You're a lot smarter than you look, Bud. You know, it would have been curtains for us if that copper would have seen what's in there." He tapped the top of the box. All I could say was, "Yes, sir." He said, "Go ahead and open it, but you have to promise. No, you have to swear that you won't breathe a word about what you see to anyone." "Mr. Lewis, sir, I'd really rather take a nap." Well, first open the box. I took in a big gulp of air and started to raise the top off the box again. Lefty Lewis yelled, "Bud!" I jumped so high I nearly banged my head on the roof of the car. I yelled back, "Yes, sir!" "I didn't hear you swear to keep your lips locked." "Oh, shucks, Mr. Lewis, I swear, but I'd feel a lot better if I could take a doggone nap." I snatched the top off the box and got ready to be scared to death. It was just some paper with writing on it. Maybe the pistol or the loot was under all this paper. I kept lifting paper until I got to the bottom of the box. Nothing. I looked at Lefty Lewis. He said, "I warned you. Pretty dangerous, isn't it?" I must have missed something. I went through the box again. "How's some paper dangerous, sir?" "Read it." I took one of the papers out. It said, "Attention railroad workers. The newly formed Grand Rapids branch of the Brotherhood of Pullman Porters will be holding an informational meeting on Wednesday, July 23rd, 1936. All interested parties, please come to 2345 Coldbrook at 9 o'clock. Refreshments will be served. You know what we're up against. Please keep this as confidential as possible." It was starting to make sense. I said, "Mr. Lewis, are you one of those labor organizers?" He laughed. "Not really, Bud. I'm picking these up so we can pass them out in Grand Rapids. We've been negotiating to get a union for the Pullman Porters for years now, and nowhere in Grand Rapids will print these flyers for us. The only place that would do them is all the way in Flint. You were running away to a pretty hot town, young man." Wow. That trouble the policeman was talking about at the factory is called a sit-down strike. Instead of walking in front of the plant with signs, the people who are on strike just sit down on their job. That way, the bosses can't bring other people in to steal their jobs. They're going to sit there until the company gives them a union. So the company is trying everything they can think of to get them out. That's why I said those flyers are so dangerous. The people who run the factories and the railroads seem to be really scared. To them, if a worker has any dignity or pride, he can't be doing a good job. Boy, these automobiles were great for making you conk out. Between the car floating real soft down the road and Lefty Lewis's boring stories about the railroad and the union and baseball, I was out cold in no time. When I woke up, I looked out the window and stretched. Lefty Lewis said, "I was about to take you to Butterworth Hospital. I thought you'd left the earth for good." He pointed out of the window and said, "Looking familiar?" Uh-oh. "Yes, sir." I pointed at a gasoline filling station and said, "Yep, there's the gasoline filling station." He said, "I guess your daddy would have to burn premium in that big packet, wouldn't he? I don't think those big engines can run on ethyl gasoline." I said, "No, sir, that's right." He told me, "Well, you and your daddy sure have one beautiful machine." I was getting real nervous, but I said, "Thank you, sir." We turned another corner and my heart started jumping around in my stomach. Halfway down the street was a building that looked like it was made out of giant chopped down trees. The Log Cabin. Uh-oh. Right outside the place was a sign that said, "Appearing Friday through Sunday in July, Herman E. Calloway and the Nubian Knights of the New Deal." My father had joined a new band. Lefty Lewis pulled up next to a car that was as long as a big boat. He said, "Ah, there's the Packard. He's here." I had to think real fast. I couldn't let Mr. Lewis and Herman E. Calloway talk to each other. If they did, I'd be on the first thing smoking back to Flint. And besides, I felt kind of bad about lying to Mr. Lewis. I wished I didn't have to. Lefty Lewis cut the car off and pulled the key out of the dashboard.